Hello, my name is Tim McConnell. I'm the managing partner of McConnell HR Consulting. Today's topic is the NPO Dilemma. NPOs are nonprofit organizations. Why do they have a dilemma? Because they're not the government and they're not the private sector. They're stuck in the middle. They have the best and the worst of both worlds. In fact, I actually wrote a book on this. The Nonprofit Dilemma, HR and Organizational Challenges in Nonprofit Organizations has just been published by Greyhound Omnimedia in the United States. The nonprofit sector is quite large. There are an estimated 160,000 NPOs in Canada. They employ over 2 million people, or 11% of the labor force. In the United States, there are over 1.5 million NPOs. The sector generates $79 billion in GDP. It's larger than the automotive or manufacturing industries. NPOs include professional associations, lobby groups, foundations, institutes, agencies, and charities. They can be found everywhere, in the arts, in culture, science, sports, recreation, religion, politics, finance, and social services. Question for you. What do sailors and executive directors have in common? Tacking. What's tacking? Tacking is a sailing maneuver by which a sailboat whose desired course is into the wind turns its bow toward the wind so that the direction from which the wind blows changes from side to side. So the boat goes like this, allowing progress in the desired direction. In English, we call it zigzagging. For executive directors of NPOs, the prevailing wind is the oft-changing whims, views, opinions, and direction provided by the board of directors. We get calls from executive directors on Monday morning saying, hey, Tim, the board had a strategy meeting on the weekend. They changed their focus, and now I have to modify the HR strategy and realign the organization structure to accommodate this new direction. Every year or two, executive directors have to accommodate the different personalities and whims of a newly elected chair of the board. A successful executive director tacks his focus on operations regularly to keep the board happy over the years, but still maintain operational integrity in the long term. So what are the MPO dilemmas? There's actually 5 of them. 1, are they in the public sector or the private sector? Which are you? Second, is the executive director the CEO or the COO? Where do they best spend their time? 3, do you have the right jobs and people in your organization? How do you know? 4, will the people you hire stay and why? Lastly, are you paying properly? Based on what? So let's look at these. Public sector or private sector, which are you? What MPOs have in common with each other is not what they are, but what they are not. They have an identity crisis. They're not the government, municipal, provincial, state, or federal. They're not in the private sector. They're in between. NPOs tend to have HR policies and practices that are in between these two extremes, yet they often wish to have the best of both worlds. This leads to several challenges. A challenge for many executive directors in small to mid-sized NPOs is something we call the CEO-COO dilemma. The executive director is called upon to play 2 distinct roles: chief executive officer with an upward external perspective and chief operating officer with a downward internal perspective. It may be a challenge for the executive director to be running around the country giving speeches or attending meetings with board members and key stakeholders while at the same time directing and managing day-to-day operations. I call this running a store. Many EDs survive by either minimizing the CEO-type activities and/or by having a strong team of directors in-house to manage the store. So what's the best place for your ED? Third dilemma, do you have the right jobs in your organization? How do you know? The approach to staffing in NPOs varies extensively. Some organizations are quite stable and only need to recruit on a periodic replacement basis. When they do, they make proper use of HR planning to carefully revalidate the need for the position and its duties and qualifications. HR planning, or workforce planning, ensures that organizations have the right people in the right position at the right time to meet their operational needs. It's a process of identifying workforce needs for the future by designing and implementing plans and programs for today. Guiding principles of workforce planning are to identify the gap between the demand for staff and the supply of employees. It considers short, medium, and long-term needs. It allows you to determine the best way to address gaps, such as forecasting, position management, and workforce analysis. It can allow you to align organizational requirements with financial and HR planning, including accommodation needs. Where are people going to sit? Lastly, it allows you to align resources with program requirements on a continual basis. NPOs in the social services sector often face high turnover. Frontline social services roles require a specific population with unique skills, a belief in the cause, making a difference, and a tolerance for low pay. At the other end of the staffing spectrum are the roller coaster NPOs. These organizations do minimal HR planning and hire to fill immediate needs, always in a hurry. They won't hesitate to lay off or terminate employees whenever the function is no longer needed. They often rehire for the same job a few months later. Needless to say, the second group spends far more money on staffing, training, and outplacement expenses. Number 4, retention. Will the people you hire stay? By this we mean the right people. As the airlines say, we know you have a variety of options in your travel plans. Thank you for flying with us today. Your best employees also have options. Are they there because they need a job or because they are committed to your cause? Your NPO's ability to achieve its program mandate and serve its clients is highly dependent on the performance of your employees. Unplanned voluntary resignations can be a major challenge. While some turnover is generally considered a good thing, what concerns NPO managers the most is the unwanted and unexpected separation of high-performing talent. Your top employee walks into your office and resigns. You want to scream. Unanticipated changes in your employee resource pool can have devastating business impacts. Disrupted projects, overruns on schedules and budgets, quality issues, and the loss of corporate memory. Do you have a retention deficit? How many of your top performers are simply biding their time, waiting until the market improves before bolting to the next job? When employees do decide to leave, it's generally not the laggards who go. The first people out the door will be the folks with the most options, your best employees. So you need to give them reasons to stay. We call these retention getters. So how do you get people to stay? The ability to retain staff so they can provide effective contributions to your success is an outcome of your HR practices, but what works and what does not work. More money is not the answer. In any case, most NPOs these days don't have any more money. There are several HR practices you can use to increase commitment and decrease turnover. Non-monetary recognition of performance. What does that mean? Try saying thank you. For most professionals, a significant portion of their motivation is derived from the recognition they receive from their managers for a job well done and the feeling that they are truly an important part of your organization. Empowerment, giving them increased responsibility for work and decision making. Fairness, having equitable rules and procedures. Employee development, allowing job rotation, mentoring, training. Work-life policies, flex time, flexible leave practices. My personal favorite is summer hours. Information sharing, communicate. Always tell your staff what's going on. Have meetings even when there's nothing to talk about. Just say, hey, here's what's going on. It goes a long way. Lastly, are you paying properly? How do you know? Payroll costs usually represent 80% of the total operating budget for most NPOs, so spending your money wisely is vitally important. Compensation can be viewed as an instrument. It's a tool to effectively reward employees in order to achieve maximum productivity. You need to decide if this tool is a blunt instrument or a precision tool. So what does an NPO compensation program look like? Do you pay like the government? That is, with annual step increases based primarily on tenure and experience, so everybody gets a raise at the end of the year if they're still breathing? Or do you pay like the private sector with a strong emphasis on performance and merit pay? This is a pervasive issue. We're constantly asked about it. Every single CEO, executive director, and director of finance we meet with about compensation raises this question. Do you pay for performance or not? A policy on pay for performance typically refers to the relative emphasis that your MPO wishes to place on rewarding individual employee performance. Should one staff member be paid differently from another if they have better performance? And how much differently? This is a philosophical question that MPO management must answer. We often get calls from MPOs saying, hey, my board really wants us to implement pay for performance. The board says, hey, let's toughen the place up. Let's be more like the private sector. But when the MPO tries to implement this, they realize that, one, they don't have effective performance appraisals. It's difficult to quantitatively measure the success of program objectives. It's not as simple as measuring how many widgets Tim sold last month. And pay for performance means giving a much larger increase to Susan and less to Tony. And many MPOs have a really hard time with that lack of equality. Most of our MPO clients try to achieve the best of both worlds by blending COLA, cost of living adjustments, with merit pay. They reward employees on the basis of perceived performance following an annual performance appraisal and by providing annual merit increases that effectively have a cost of living adjustment built in. So higher level performers receive slightly larger increases than poorer performers. The problem is the difference is only 1 or 2%. Is that sufficient? Compensation also creates other dilemmas for MPOs. What's your market position? Who do you compete with for labor? Many MPOs are in the social sector, founded by donations or government grants, and pay far lower than the government or the private sector. This makes it difficult to attract and retain the right skilled staff. Internal equity. Another dilemma is when an MPO has a pay policy position for most staff that is at a low level, but finds itself forced to pay much higher for specific hot skills, such as IT or development, which is fundraising. That's it. Lots of dilemmas. But as mentioned above, NPOs contribute $79 billion to our economy. So you're obviously doing a great job, not to mention all the societal benefits you provide. Thank you.